What's up, everybody? Welcome to the channel. Hopefully welcome back. Got a new gimbal. We're testing out this body tracking feature. Let's see how this goes. Doing some work like this and running the loader. So testing 1 2. So we're back on this log cabin style solar panel racking system that I'm making. I know it's a little far back there, but I just cut the bottom off of this cedar tree, if you will. That's going to be one of the uprights. This thing looks pretty cool. It's got a bunch of little knotty branches coming off of it. I'm into it, so let's see how this goes. Well, you don't have to be a future teller to see that this body tracking feature is not happy with me on this piece of equipment. Kind of seems like it doesn't know what to do. So yeah, I'm saying right now that this seems like it's going to be a flop for any time that I'm doing work with the equipment. Now, in all fairness, if you don't know how to use the thing that you're trying to utilize, it doesn't really help. Apparently, you can make some different hand gestures, and the gimbal will recognize that through the camera. So I think what I could do is make a hand gesture to stop the body tracking when I hop on the machine, and then when I get off, I can make this other hand gesture, and then it will start the body tracking. But you know what? This is a type of channel where we're sharing the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm not fluffing anything up for anybody, so you can see that you know what? It's kind of working, because I feel like it's splitting the difference between me and the machine, and then it just completely sketched out. So now we're just doing, you know, regular old filming. I'll have to do some research on how to use the thing I bought, because apparently I don't know what I'm doing, and it's not the first time, it won't be the last. So if you're wondering what all that finagling is, I'm trying to get this thing to see if it's, you know, going to stand up and be what I'm going to call plumb, because you really can't use a level on a live tree, if you will. So it's out of balance. There's too much hanging off the top. I didn't want to cut this off till I was ready to do that, but it's just too awkward, and I can't get this thing to go up high enough to just let it dangle. So I'm taking a measurement, giving myself plenty of wiggle room, and it looks like I can save about 3 foot of the end of this thing, which is good, because I really like this thing. It's pretty cool looking, and having a 3 foot section, there's a lot of different things that I could do with a 3 foot section, but if it was like 2 foot, there's not a whole lot you can do with that. So I'm happy to salvage the other end of this. This stuff was all gifted to me from some guy I had mentioned in another video who did log cabin restorations, custom building. Just gave me a ton of materials. Alright, well, I'm going to throw you all on time lapse. I've never done this before. I'm trying to figure it out, and I will show you how it goes, just not in real time, because that's a waste of time. Alright, now if you're wondering what I'm doing with my hands up, I'm using the plumb bob to check and see if what I think is the center of the base and the center of the top are in alignment. Now keep your eye in the background here. This little dog, we've got a problem. She is just overly interested in the chainsaw and thinks that it's something that she can just get involved with, possibly nip at, and I'm trying to teach this dog, this is a new dog pretty much, like, hey, you can hang out while we're working, but you can't just dive in on this thing. And here I've got this, maybe 10,000 pound bucket and arm hovering over top of me, and I'm running a chainsaw, and I'm worried about the dog, and like, this is either how I'm going to end up getting hurt, or the dog's going to end up getting hurt. So, you know what? She needs to go inside. Now, this dog is somewhere 50-50 between knowing that she's in trouble and not wanting to come to me so that I can put her inside, and then she's just also wanting to play. So I'm trying to snatch this dog up and stick her inside, which I managed to do, and I stuck her in the crate for a little bit, giving the dog a timeout instead of beating her with a 2x4, trying to be nice. So the dog is in timeout, and it's game on for us. Alright, so I'm trying to get this thing to basically merge with the base to where it's touching completely, and then also being plumb. So that's why I keep going around every time I make an adjustment to check it out to see, are we plumb. I grab the belt sander there to try and nip at it a little more. I thought maybe the chainsaw was too aggressive. I think the chainsaw is probably the right tool. It's just one of these things where you're just going to have to keep test fitting. And if I had an extra set of hands to work the hydraulics on the loader, maybe it would go a little quicker. So it's just one of those things that you're doing something that you've never done before, something that's also unconventional, and there's a learning curve, and it's just going to take some time. So that's what's going on. I think I've got myself kind of hovering right over the target right now, and we're going to use some construction adhesive to bond this to the skid down there, and then if there are any small gaps that water could get into or could cause it to kind of wiggle, in theory these will fill those gaps and create a more solid base. So that's what I'm doing, putting a whole bunch of it down in there, and we're going to let this thing down and tack nail it with the framing gun, and then we're going to get into drilling the pilot hole for these legs, and that's a whole other process. But if you're wondering what's going on, what are we doing, this is what's going on, and that's what we're doing. Now that I've got all that adhesive down there, it's a little slippery and squirmy, and I'm trying not to, push it all out the sides instead of staying in there where it needs to be. Got some rubber gloves on, trying to wipe the excess off the edges. Once this dries up, I'm going to come back in with a chainsaw and clean up around the edges. I don't want this stuff just smeared everywhere. So got the air compressor out, the hose hooked up, waiting for this thing to build up some pressure. I'm going to check on that, and it looks like we got plenty of pressure, and we can start nailing. But before we do that, let's just take another check with the old plumb bob, and never hurts to double, triple, quadruple check whatever it is that you've got to do. You know, this isn't a pain job, so being efficient really isn't on the table. But I would like to get it ready if all possible. Like, this is basically just a section of trees, so everybody knows that most trees don't grow perfectly straight, so it's thick on this side and then that side, and wiggles a little bit this way and that way, so you know, we're not checking from a whole 360 degrees because the loader's in the way, but we are getting a pretty good look at what's going on. And for what we're doing, I think it's very, very close. Got some tacks in there. Now I'm going to grab the hammer and the nail set to set these as deep as possible in the wood, just because I'm going at a pretty steep angle, trying to be able to, I mean, they're only 3.5 inch long nails, so you got to go at a pretty steep angle. And right now I do not have the correct nail set, so I just went and got the correct one, and it's looking good. Now I just got to get this strap off here, and I'm trying not to destroy the work that I did. Like what I did in the last video, that was a pretty big setback in regards to time, but it is what it is. I mean, you got a choice when it all falls apart. You can say, hell with it, let's throw it in a burn pile and order something off of Amazon, or we can just go the distance, and that's what we're doing. So hopefully I can get this strap off and get the loader out of here without destroying my work again, because that was a little disappointing last time. But getting upset doesn't get you to the finish line. You know, just keeping your head down and working and trying to have a good attitude is the way you're going to get it done. Prices averted for the moment. What a big help this loader is, man. You know, when you don't have an extra set of hands, you know, could you imagine how difficult that would be to do on your own, having to stand that thing up all those times over and over, and maybe it falls over on your chainsaw and breaks it, or another tool. So, having this loader is a real blessing. It's a good all around piece of equipment. You can't obviously do something like that with a typical bulldozer. Now, if you had a track hoe, we could have dangled that thing from the tip, and then once I got my measurements, cut it off from there. That would have been real nice. I really need a track hoe. I'm trying to get one from my neighbor. I was supposed to be doing some work on that, but he hasn't gotten fluids and whatnot, so that's kind of on hold. But I'd really like to get that track hoe from him. It's just been sitting and sitting for years, and he doesn't want to sell it. He's kind of guy that just holds on to stuff, which is fine. You know what I mean? But he kind of told me if you get it running for me, you can use it. So we were kind of doing something with that. But he needed to get some fluids and just has gotten sidetracked with his work and trading stuff. He likes to buy and sell things. Anywho, let's get you guys off the tripod here and give you a close-up, and you can tell me if I suck at life or not. So I like the way that this looks. I cut it to where the base of the cedar tree fit onto that skid really nice. And you can see that flat angle kind of worked with that X crossbar. And it really just looks like it belongs there. You know what I mean? I'm really liking how this is looking, and it's got all those little, branches that, were cut off. And this thing's going to be really cool. Once I get this thing all done, I'm going to pressure wash it and use this, I guess it's like a cleaner that you use before, you stain these timbers and whatnot. I forget what it's called. But yeah, I'm pretty excited. This is going to look cool. Hang in there and let's see how it goes. Well, it's time to get this fastened to the skid. I decided to triangulate 3 fasteners. I'm using 1/2-inch lag bolts that are 10 inches long. And what I'm doing is, drilling a pilot hole that goes basically all the way down, that is sufficient for the threads locking in without having any splintering of the wood. And after I do that, I'm using a paddle bit to give the washer a place to set and a recess for the bolt head. And then I'm taking and following up with a 1/2-inch bit for the section of the lag bolt that has a non-threaded collar. So that way that's not creating pressure and splintering the wood out. This is pretty important because if you don't do it like this, you can end up basically just cracking and blowing the wood out, and then you've got this big heavy duty fastener that's done nothing but make things worse, and it's not actually going to do its job. And I also have a bunch of these different Torx head timber screws, and I'm going to put 3 of those in there also, but we're just starting with this here. So that's what we're going after. Now, if you haven't made angle drills like this before, this is a good example on how to get your bit started. See, I'm coming in on not a very shallow angle. I'm kind of starting a hole and then slowly walking the bit up to the desired angle. And as far as the amount of penetration I'm getting in the wood, I may be like 3/8 of an inch deep. And then once I'm established that hole and I have the pitch of the drill bit at the angle I want, as you can see, I'm starting to run that in there, pulling it out, letting the bit clean itself out. It'll end up getting clogged with wood when you're, boring for such a long section. So that's a good way to get your bit started on a steep angle like this without just kind of floundering around on the outside of the timber and kind of just doing a bunch of damage to it. So if you've never done those angle drills before, that's a good way to get started. Alright, well, I'm headed to the supply shed, if you will, to get some of those timber screws I was talking about. This air gun is one of those NitroCat half-inch impact guns. It really sucks the volume up. The tank on the compressor, I think it's only like 4 or 5 gallons, but it runs a 210 PSI line pressure, which is great. So it's one of those things where you just got to kind of do a workaround. You know that you're going to run the pressure out, and you find something else to do for a quick minute and then come back to it. I do have a 80-gallon 200 volt, what is it, a 220, 240, I always get those mixed up, volt full-size air compressor, but I don't have dual-phase electric with the generator that I have. And at some point when I get this solar set up the way I'd like, I will have dual phase so I could use that compressor and have the supply of air that I need. Now I am lost in space trying to find my tape measure. I probably would have edited this out, but Miss Lily stopped by. She doesn't come by too often. She's always in bed, napping, or staying in the AC, whatever it is. So while I'm looking like a big dummy trying to find my tape, we'll say hi to Miss Lily. Get to see her for a couple minutes. Hope y'all enjoy her. She's a 15-year-old baby. I've had her since she was 8 weeks old, in case you don't watch the channel. She's a good dog. She's been out here with me for over 3 years now. So she's pretty old. She doesn't get around like she used to, but she is happy. I look at her sometimes and I'm like, man, for an old lady, you got a great attitude. I think as long as she's getting some pets and scratchies and some people food, she is down to hang out till the last breath. Alright, well, you folks saw me go through the process of setting the first one. We won't be doing that for the second one. This one actually went a lot smoother, and I left those bolts out so you can see what they look like before you drive them in while they're in place. And then I also did an additional 3 of those T40 timber screws. Very, very, very secure. And then we also have the construction adhesive under there. But that's about all the progress I got on this for this video. From this point forward, I'm going to be doing a bunch of triangulated bracing to secure these up. Now, this is going to be the high side of the solar array. 45 degrees is the winter pitch down here, so I do need a bit of height for the amount of panels I'm using. So that's what we got going on. I appreciate you all watching this video. Drop a comment, let me know what you think. And yeah, see you all in the next one.